Before we start the podcast, a quick message, definitely not from sponsors. We said off the bat that we'd not monetize this podcast, and we stand by it. We do, however, face increasing costs that individual members are largely covering themselves, such as a full Zoom plan and a decent transcription service, along with the usual hosting costs. We will therefore ask you if you would like to contribute towards these via our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/gozpod, or by purchasing podcast merch at gosatan.com, then hitting the shop link and selecting Gozpod from the categories. Links will be provided in the show notes. We will categorically only use these to cover costs, and in the very unlikely event that we get more than we pay out, the remainder will go to the charities supported by our Satan Not Hatin campaign. If you can't afford to pay or just can't be asked, that's fine. We won't offer any lesser content to you freeloaders. On to the podcast. Welcome to yet another episode of Gozpod, the podcast from the Global Order of Satan UK. And this time with us, we have Laraj.
Hail Satan.
We have Eddie.
Hail Satan.
We have Lygia.
Hail Satan.
I'm Lithos, in case you hadn't guessed. And we have a special guest this time from FSS, Free Society Satanists, over in the US, who have recently come under the, shall I say, umbrella of GOS, who has his own podcast, which we will be linking in the show notes. This is Jack Violently, aka Cardinal Peccatum.
Hail Satan and hail the Global Order of Satan.
Absolutely, and hail FSS as well. So basically what we're going to do here is, the idea is to introduce our UK listeners and listeners elsewhere who are familiar with GOS and our podcast to what one of our American chapters does. And basically, this is the Free Society of Satanists. And Jack will now explain a bit more about, well, first of all, your Satanism, Cardinal Peccatum. It's a good one.
So I actually thought you were going to ask me about Jack Violently as well. Violently. Huh?
Yes, please. That one too.
So I was trying to think about, the best Satanism, and everybody always uses these very gothic, very mythical names. And I was trying to think, what is more satanic than self-pleasure? So Jack Violently is really just a masturbation reference. But Cardinal Peccatum, I got that one, or I gave that one to myself, because when we started FSS, we kind of wanted to, as the English would say, take the piss out of Catholic religion, and they give themselves very grandiose titles. So I'm the co-founder of the FSS. Cardinal Peccatum. Peccatum is the Latin word for sin. So literally my title is Cardinal Sin. And then Sai has Mother Miriam, which is a play on, I think, a family name of hers. But yeah, we kind of gave ourselves bullshit Catholic titles to just take the piss out of organized religion.
Excellent. Oh. Yes. I mean, they're both good. And I had figured out that Jack Violently was that. Unless it was some oblique sort of back reference to I think it was an 80s movie called Johnny Dangerously.
That's what I thought it was.
So I used to be in a punk band, and every Valentine's Day we would do a special Valentine show. And we would each have very phallic names for our stage people. It was very stupid. And I adopted Jack Violently early on, and it just kind of ran with it. So even after the Valentine show, I would just be Jack Violently on the bass. And for the Valentine show, the band name was called Jack Violently and the Throbbers. So very phallic, just the most base level, teenage boy sexual reference stuff. So when I, officially became a Satanist by raising my hand and saying that I am one, I was starting to think to myself, like, everybody has a Satanism. So what could mine be? And I just kind of kept that as, the satanic view of self-pleasure and self-gratification. So it just kind of fit.
That's you probably didn't. You might have got that from the video, but you probably didn't get the audio because we turned our mics off because Zoom,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was met with laughter. That's a classic band name. That is.
That's awesome. Appreciate that. Sorry.
So, give us a brief sort of history of Free Society Satanists. Whereabouts you're based, what regions do you cover, your kind of membership?
So we originally, we came from other groups. The original 10 people that the Free Society Satanists started with, I'm not going to dignify them with a name, but we came from another Discord group. And we kind of started realizing that a lot of unsavory things were happening in that group. So we all kind of split apart roughly within the same time. And we just kind of floated friends in Discord for about 4 or 5 months before Cy and myself really decided to try to make this a group and try to make it honest. So the early days of Free Society Satanist, where the name comes from and our symbol comes from, is a 1900s newspaper that was based out of Portland, Oregon. And the newspaper originally was called The Firebrand, until 3 years later, it turned into the Free Society. And that was an anarchistic publication espousing the beliefs that women should have bodily autonomy, women should have the same right to education as men, and they also decried the fouls and the atrocities of slavery, being one generation removed. So I was thinking to myself, if an anarchistic newspaper from 1900s was really like espousing some very dangerous beliefs, at that time, of like speaking out against slavery and speaking up for women and doing all that, I was like, man, like that's what I want to base this group on. I want us to be a very forward, because if we think about Satan as being the literary figure who spoke truth to power and spoke out for the tyrannized and the oppressed, well, in our society, the tyrannized and the oppressed are the POC community, the queer community, women, so I wanted to base the Free Society on what I believed to be what Satanism is. And that newspaper kind of encapsulated it. So we came up with our logo and we called it the Firebrand, and we called the group the Free Society just based on the newspaper's 2 names. So we're kind of giving them a doff of the cap for that. We've been a group for about 8 months. We started out with 10 people, and with the podcast has kind of helped us grow, not super fast, but we've been getting, people fairly regularly who just listen to the podcast and find it organically, which was always a pretty good help with that. But yeah, Cy and I sat down just under a year ago and really codified our beliefs of what we wanted to see in satanic organizations and spaces that we didn't see before.
By all means, what I'd say here is we will put your podcast details in the show notes, but please do take a moment to big yourself up here. And it's a good podcast. It's worth listening to. So, Jack, what is the name?
Yeah, so the podcast is called the Ave Satanist Podcast. It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. It's literally most places where podcasts are given. And it's myself and Chris. Chris is one of our council members. He's the Grand Inquisitor. If you've heard me reference that on the podcast before, he is the voice of reason. He's the grown-up in the room. I am the monkey with the symbols, and he is the adult in the room. So he kind of keeps me on track. A good friend of mine. He's also down here in Georgia. But yeah, so it's primarily us two. We sometimes have Cy on. She doesn't really want to be on the mic too much. She has a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, the Ave Satanist Podcast, it's on pretty much every platform out there.
Yeah, there was a great episode a month back, actually, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, Mr. Eddie has been on one. We had a really good talk. And I want to say, like, you were just coming off of a cold, or you were like sick leading up that week into it.
If I remember correctly, I think we were all horribly sick and unwell.
I think your audio's cutting out. I don't know if it's just for me, but your audio's cutting out a lot, Eddie.
Yeah, it is for me as well.
I'm currently broadcasting from a undisclosed location. So I'm not nearby by normal camp. So.
The Satan Bunker 3.0, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, there was that podcast of which I was supposed to be on, and I fucking forgot, and I will apologize for it again.
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm fucking useless, and I know now I have to diary everything, and that one I didn't diary, so I fucking forgot about it.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, so you've got the starter there. You mentioned you're in Georgia. Sort of how many other regions or places do you cover? Where else have you got members?
So, but we're kind of twofold here. With the podcast, we get members from all over. So basically, if somebody can find us through the podcast, they can just join the Free Society, and in return, that's their en route to Global Order. But if somebody joins us through the Global Order of Satan, we're really primarily relegated to like the southeastern portion of the United States of America. So you're thinking about like Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and then the Carolinas, Florida as well too. So yeah, that's kind of our Global Order of Satan demographic. But through the podcast, people can find us wherever, and that could be a good entrance into GOS there. But yeah, so we really have those two regions to cover through the show.
So now we have in GOS there's the overarching 6 pillars. Which we've gone into on this podcast in the past. We'll not go over them again. You've got 9 principles, and there's a shitload of overlap, obviously.
Really?
But,
yeah.
If you could go through them, there is one pillar in particular, and you know which one, that I really like, because it is kind of unique, as in, I don't know of any other Satanist organization that explicitly states that as a principle. So, over to you, Jack.
It is really cool that you say that, because so I had known about Global Order just like has a name, but I didn't know anything else about them for about like 2 years. Like I'd heard about it tangentially through another podcast. I didn't really do too much digging into it back then, but I knew you guys existed. And so when I came up with the 9 principles of the Free Society Satanist, at that point, when we were first getting this group off the ground, we still didn't really know a lot about GOS. So, and I say that to say, there is a lot of overlap between the 6 pillars and the 9 principles. So the first one is pretty standard fare for a satanic organization. You are your own master, and you should live life according to your own will alone. I think we all know what that means. You're your own God. You don't need a shepherd because you're not a sheep. Second one is show compassion and respect to yourself first and others second. If someone exploits your compassion, rescind it. Once again, pretty common fare stuff. We just add a bit more of a harsher language to it. Number 3, also right down the middle here, logic and reason shall always prevail over superstition and dogma. I think most every satanic organization has somewhere like some form of that. Number 4, respect others' boundaries lest yours be trampled underfoot. So if you're not going to respect other people's boundaries, you can pretty much expect yours just to be cast aside. That one's that. I like this one here. This is really important to me. Strive to live each day as your most authentic self. That's number 5. Unless you're like a kid or, you're late teens, you still have to live with your parents and you have to kind of tone it down a little bit, then sure, don't live your life to 11. But if it's safe to do so and it's not going to impact your job or your living situation, you should always live life, as authentically as you can. Number 6, indulge without excess. Do what thou wilt, as long as it brings harm to no one else. And that's, we as Satanists like to live deliciously. We like to live by our vices, but your vices shouldn't be anybody else's problems. So, just indulge without excess. This is the one I think you were referencing here. This is number 7. Treat nature and her environs with the utmost respect.
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one.
The reason I like this one here, it really puts the argument of the invisible sky daddy versus Mother Nature on its head. Who has given us more? I would say Mother Nature. She makes trees, which makes oxygen, which feeds and basically keeps this whole thing running. What has an invisible sky daddy ever done for us? I think Mother Nature's given us a lot more than we're giving her credit for. So we should treat that with some respect and some reverence. So to that end, that's kind of more of the snub to the nose of like organized religion than it reads on its face. Number 8, if you wrong someone, acknowledge your mistake and work to ensure that it won't be repeated. I think that's also in most or some satanic organizations. And then we're going to end up with never proselytize. If asked questions, answer them. Otherwise, let others discover the path for themselves. So yeah, I wanted to add that Mother Nature in there. Number 7, drastically important for me. I work as a land surveyor. So I work outside in the woods 5 days a week. And there's something like inherently satanic about just being in the middle of the woods, a stream running by, seeing nature go all past you, and just knowing that like Mother Nature gave all of this view for me right now. It's very indulgent, very grounding to be in nature. And I do believe people should get back to doing more of that.
Yep, absolutely. I'll hail that sentiment. It's, yeah, absolutely. And I do like that kind of addition. I think most Satanists would kind of go, yeah, well, that's kind of implicit in what we believe, but to actually say it, it's good. So, yeah, excellent. So after your 9 is sort of going through your origins and your 9 principles, there's obviously the ritual aspect of Satanism. What kind of rituals do you tend to do, like unbaptism, initiation kind of things? Because they tend to be quite individual to various satanic groups as well.
So last year was our first ever meetup. We weren't even under the banner of Free Society Satanist at that point yet. It was just basically, the 10 of us that originally created the group and the loved ones of. So we had our meetup in Illinois last year. And before that meetup, I wrote out what I called the 4 anointed promises to Baphomet. And that's our unbaptism ritual. And that's really standard fare. It's 4 questions. And at the end of the 4 questions, the person takes the chalice, drinks out of it, and that dissolves the waters that rushed over them, aka baptism. So I wrote that a month before the meetup, and I was able to perform it twice. And I actually had it performed to me. So I've had my own unbaptism. As far as initiation goes, we don't really have rituals per se to become a member of the Free Society Satanist. Unfortunately, because we are so spread out due to people coming from the podcast, we really only have 1 meetup a year. So primarily we do the unbaptism ritual once a year. Other than that, there's really no other rituals or rites to become a member of our group other than just to say, hey, I'm a member of the Free Society. So ritual to us, Cy and I both place minimal effort on ritual. Like we're not ritual heavy. We don't discourage people from joining in rituals, but as far as the 2 of us, we really don't place a lot of stock in rituals.
Yeah, and that's, when I said earlier, it varies a lot. The initiation ritual I mentioned, we do that, but it's not a requirement. We have plenty of members who are full members, but haven't gone through the initiation ritual. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. Yeah. This is not like the Catholic Church, if you don't want to do it, but it's for people who want to specifically do it. I wanted to do it. It's sort of like meant to me, it meant quite a bit personally to actually say out loud in front of a bunch of witnesses, "Hail Satan," and the Catholic Church can get to fuck, basically.
Well, Satanism is primarily a very self-centered religion. We don't get to hang out very much. We don't have our one day a week where we're all in person together and, we get to see each other weekly in a set place. So I could definitely see there's a lot of value of like doing that ritual because it kind of cements you as part of the group and it kind of cements you as like, we went through this together. Whereas I feel like if we met up I don't want to say Sunday, that sounds a bit off, but if we met up every Saturday, if Saturday was our day, like every Saturday we have Black Mass, at that point, I don't feel like the ritual would be as needed or as important. So the fact that we don't meet up, that's like when you do have a meetup, it is super important, and ritual plays a high part in that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to echo that one. A lot of the times when we do our rituals, they are very much impromptu and are less organized and less well planned. And I feel like that usually carries more weight as opposed to the ones that we take a lot more time for and put more energy for, because it tends to be significantly rawer, more compelling for those who are actually there and going like, yeah, we're going to do this right now. We're going to make it work with what we've got. Do we have pomegranate seeds? No, but someone's got some sunflower seeds, and they don't drink, so they don't got wine, so we've got this nice bottle of sparkling water and things like that. And it just makes the whole thing feel a lot more personal, a lot more critically in tune.
With our unbaptism ritual, so before it even starts, like the person who officiates it goes to the person who is getting it done and gives them a cup. And I'll be like, hey, go in the kitchen, fill this up with whatever you want. I don't want to know what you put in this cup. I shouldn't know what you put in this cup. So I go back to the altar space. They're in the kitchen filling it up with whatever. They hand me the cup back and I set it on the altar. And I like that because it does add such a personal aspect of it, because the waters that rushed over the people's heads when they were getting the Christian or Catholic baptism, that's just water. That's all the same. So by dissolving it, you get to choose what dissolves that water. So that makes it very like personal to the person getting it. And I wanted to make sure that I added that in there specifically, I get to choose what takes this away from me. Everybody had water. I'm going to use Jack Daniels, or whatever, but yeah, I love that personal choice aspect.
Yeah, I mean, yes. To really get the Catholic out of you, you need drain cleaner. Sorry, I was raised a Catholic, so I have particular issues with that particular brand of Jesus cultage. Anyway,
something that's always been a bit of a mystery to me is because I wasn't raised religious at all. I was raised by atheist parents as an atheist, and I think all of you have been raised in one version of the Christian faith or another. So yeah, it's.
And yeah, it's partly why we have these rituals and we have these sort of things we've taken with us from when we've left, like our various faith backgrounds, if we had them, because there is a value to that. There is a sort of like communal value to having these like shared ritual spaces and these shared ceremonies and these shared conversations you have with people on like a semi-regular basis that people understand when they get to. There is a community in that, there is learning, and there is something that is worth preserving and taking with you to do something different and hopefully more productive, as opposed to just keeping it back there with them. I think is valuable, and I think it's probably one of the more powerful things we can do as an organisation.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made that us who regularly do podcasts, and we all do, all of us here now do one podcast or another, that's almost a form of ritual in itself.
And really, like, I would say anything would be a ritual if you kind of think about it, to those who smoke weed, getting the bowl ready, packing the bowl, making sure the TV's on Cartoon Network, getting in your comfy PJs. That's a ritual. Anything really can be a ritual, but it's fun to me to examine the people in the group who came from other religious backgrounds. So like, people who come from a Muslim faith, who services might not be as ritual heavy as, let's say, the Catholic or the Christian or even like the Jewish faith. So like, you know, people who come from a Muslim faith might not put as much stock into it as somebody who came from like the Catholic faith, which is a very like everything is a ritual in a Catholic service, like the stand up, sit down, you know, take the cracker, drink the juice, everything is a ritual. So it kind of, it interests me to see how people find Satanism from other religions and how that correlates to what they think about ritual.
I mean, I think all, if we're talking about Abrahamic religions, well, I would say all religions tend to be ritual heavy, because even though in Islam, for example, you might not have the church, you know, every Sunday, and that you still have the several times prayer act a day. Yeah. You got to spend a month fasting. You know, it's like, I would not, you know, I'm quite happy to admit I don't want to have the self-discipline for that, and I don't see why I should. No. I don't see the point, to be quite honest. But hey-ho. But, you know, we have our own rituals. They tend to be a bit more fun.
Right. And it's all based on, you know, it's all based on like kind of, you know, taking the piss out of church. At the end of the day, we are kind of just snubbing our nose at organized religion. So how far you take it, how much fun you have with it. I've really enjoyed seeing other groups perform satanic rituals and just how deep they go, because it just looks so fucking fun to just be able to be that carefree in the moment and living life right there. Love it.
The last thing really sort of I wanted to ask you in the more formal section of this is, you know, what kind of campaigns you have done, because I know campaigning is also part of, generally it's part of sort of proper satanic practice as well.
Mm-hmm. So we just as soon as we kind of came into GOS, we were starting to think about what we would do, even kind of before then. Before we were in the purview of the Global Order of Satan, we were more focused primarily on trying to get enough people to make a campaign worth it. Our first campaign has been underway for 2 months. We are working with the Atlanta Mutual Aid Fund, the Atlanta Mutual Aid Society, rather. And what they do is it is a grassroots organization where they distribute funds based on endangered immigrant status, the POC community, the queer community, and the unhoused. And it is a not a merit-based, that's not the right word. It's an honor system-based mutual aid fund where you ask for what you need. You do not have to pay it back, but they request that you pay it forward. So if I'm down on my luck, I need $250 to meet rent. I go to these people and say, hey, you know, I'm 250 short. I really need rent this month. Can you help? And they decide to help you. They just give you $250. No need to repay. But once you are in a place where you can help other people, they do suggest that you try to help other people. Here in Atlanta, that it's a really important thing to see the neighborhood looking out for each other like that. And I myself am from Atlanta and have been here for 20 years. So I thought that was an important one to start our campaign on, because there's no red tape in order to get money from them or donate to them. It's literally one office. It's 3 people, and they are out and about in the community trying to just help people and do as much good as they can. And we've been going at it for 2 months. So we're going to do 2 fundraisers a year, 5 months and 5 months with a month in between to reset and schedule. So we are a month and a half into our first 5-month campaign, and our goal has been $100 a month. We want to give every charity we work with $500, and we are 175, just slightly short of our goal. I think we can make it up next month. We don't have the second one planned. So July through December, we'll be sitting down and trying to find the next one that we're going to work with there. We are also working with the Heathens Against Racial Prejudice, which is a play on words for the SHARP community. I don't know if you guys know what SHARPs are. It's an acronym. It stands for Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice. So I kind of wanted to do the Heathens Against Racial Prejudice, or the HARPs. That is just basically what it sounds like, Satanists getting together to fight racism and fascism. We made a shirt, and it's on I think it's on both websites. And all the money that we make from selling those shirts will go to our fundraisers as well. We are also working with the Satan Not Hatin' campaign. We're working with you guys on that, trying to find bands that will lend their services, or at least, stand up and say that they're in agreement with it. And let me see what else besides that. I think that's the three main things we have going on so far.
Sounds excellent. I mean, yeah. I mean, those are really good campaigns to get behind. I don't need to trumpet Satan Not Hatin' again on here. we will keep doing it. But yeah, excellent. I do in particular like the idea of that, giving people money if they're deserving of it, right, if they need it, and then going, we're not expecting you to pay back, but once you make enough money to pay us back or to help out, it would be nice.
Yeah, just to kind of spread that out into the community, because it could be something as man, my car broke down. I'm usually good. I usually don't need any help, but the transmission blew and I have to get that fixed. So if I can just get that fixed, I can now help out more people. So it's kind of like this spider web, like a shotgun blast. It just kind of spreads out. So that way, if groceries are expensive. Everything's expensive these days. If you could just get a little bit of help to get a little bit forward, then you can help other people out. So yeah, the Atlanta Mutual Aid Fund, I love them for what they do. And I think that's a really commendable model that they've built their mutual aid fund on.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've kind of been monopolizing the conversation from the UK end a bit at the moment. Anyone over here got questions they want to ask Jack before we kind of move on to a more general discussion?
Yeah, what's that you're drinking, Jack?
Well, depending on the cup that I'm holding up, this will be Johnny Walker Double Black and Coca-Cola. Yeah, there we go. Woodford Reserve, my man. Like it.
The nice. Two separate glasses. I like the respect for the drink. You're not going to try and abuse one with the black liquor.
Yeah, no, yeah. Nary the two shall meet. They taste good on their own, but they should stay that way. So yeah, I do respect it. Neat is the only way to fly.
Fantastic. Right. So now you've all heard about FSS. Please do go to their website and have a look as well. And that will also be posted in the show notes. And once we've kind of introduced everyone to FSS, let's have a more general discussion. And what shall we talk about? Because just to let you all know, if some of us sound a bit slower and more shell-shocked than usual, we are recording this the day after the little Trump and J.D. Vance incident with Zelensky at a press conference of a fucking magnitude I have never encountered before.
I would like to start off. Okay, for the people, for the Gospod listeners listening in Europe and abroad and everywhere else that is not the red, white, and blue, I want to formally apologize for what we put out in the world. Please understand that the vast majority of Americans really think this is just as fucking stupid as you guys do as well. Every day is crazier than the day before. And I just wonder to myself, how long until this nightmarish hellscape, and not even the fun kind, the unfun kind, how long until this nightmarish hellscape just kind of ends, or people go, you know what, this is fucking enough. I'm sick of listening to this. It's time to do something. And sadly, it just keeps getting weirder.
Yeah. Could I ask maybe, I don't like politics, but from what I've heard, Americans do like talking about politics in like everyday situations. Is that right? And is it changing at the moment, or how do you feel about?
That is So over here, the way that I view that is it's kind of a dying thing. Like the old guard, and when I say the old guard, I mean the old Republicans. They like to assign meaning to everything. Meaning if you're a young person and you have tattoos or you dye your hair, they think they already know you. Right. Oh my God, you're this devilish demon-crat or no, demonic rat. That's what they call Democrats.
Burn.
You're a demonic rat. Yeah, burn, own the libs.
Yeah.
Young people really don't, to my understanding, like I feel like we can listen to a person and in 2 sentences know which way they lean, but we don't base politics on that. So there's obviously the things you can throw out there to test somebody. And if somebody looks at you, you have green hair, you dress funny, they can look at you like down their nose and they can do it that way. But the older white American men like to make everything about politics, and it's sad. I'm 44, so I almost line up with that demograph. But it's a shame to me that they're letting something occur that high trip them up when you could learn so much more just by shutting your mouth and opening your ears. But yeah, there is a faction of our community that does like to base everything on politics, and hopefully it's dying out.
So that would make your t-shirt a little bit dangerous, maybe?
So I'm
like I said,
yeah, I'm from the Bible Belt. I grew up in central Georgia, and luckily their font is very hard to read if you're at a distance.
Okay. I know them. I love them. That's maybe I just know.
Love that band. Yes. I would not wear this around a family reunion. I wouldn't wear this in the town in which I grew up in. I also have from Spain the Branca Studios Satanic Anti-Fascist Action. I don't know if you've seen that shirt. It's the Antifa flag with the 666 on it. Oh. It's dope. I have that one. I definitely wouldn't wear that where I grew up.
Yeah.
But yeah, and probably half my closet too. But
yeah, I feel that.
But where I live now, I live in a town called Little 5 Points. It's in Atlanta, and our town motto is, "We're all here because we're not all there." So it's a town of like graffiti artists and weirdos and musicians. And
that's awesome.
The mayor of Little 5 Points has gauges in his ears the size of softballs. So I'm lucky enough to live in an artist community now, but that wasn't always the case. So, but yeah, travel 25 minutes in either direction of where I live, and you're very much in Trump country. So sadly.
Yes.
Dead air, as they say.
Yes. Well, we ended up talking about such a happy, easy subject.
Right.
Politics poisoning everyone's lives.
As we were talking, like before the episode landed, or before we started, rather, it's weird to me, and I always talk about this in our group as well. Younger people in our group that are maybe 25, 27, this weirdness in politics has been their entire life. This is all they've ever known. People who have a bit more gray in their hair, hand raised, can remember a time when like the news wasn't so freaking crazy and you didn't hear the insane ramblings of lunatics, regardless of side. Like I'm a lefty. I'll say it. like it's a hot take. Yeah, I'm a lefty. Wow. Even then, we like in the 90s, the weirdest thing you would hear Republicans talk about and go on about would be the budget, like budgetary concerns, money, fiscal responsibility. And the most shocking thing that the Democrats would talk about would be feeding the homeless. Wow, like big shock there. So nothing too insidious, nothing too crazy. It was really when Obama's first term came around and the evangelical right started with the birtherism stuff. Like he's born in Kenya. QAnon, Alex Jones, and Rush Limbaugh are really like the 3 main catalysts for why we are in the pickle that we're in right now. And it's sad to wake up and look at the news and see all the incendiary and just bullshit things that America is pumping out at a massive rate. And I am so sorry for the rest of the world for having to see it, but I'm more sorry for the people here who are having to live through it and really be scared. People of color, the queer community, women. They are really the ones who are getting the brunt of it. The co-founder of the Free Society Satanist, she's South Asian, and she is in a state that doesn't like South Asians very much. So it's scary, and we have to look out for each other. As Satanists, we have to stand up for the tyrannized, for the oppressed, and be that buffer between them. And that's kind of what I hope to do, and what I hope we all kind of do for the next 3.5 years.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Does the current situation that you just described, does it impact your rituals? Is it changing how you approach it? Is it becoming something new, something else?
So with our rituals,
if it's something you can talk about, I don't know.
It doesn't really impact our rituals. And it doesn't really impact our outward expression as Satanist. So one thing I didn't touch on is the firebrand. Our actual logo would be, which way do I turn? That way. I chose that to be kind of camouflage when you're out in public. If you want to show that you're a Satanist without having an upside down pentagram or having the Baphomet or whatever, the firebrand that we have is literally our initials, TFS. And it's just done in a colophon style. So in that way, we can still show that we are Satanist outside without really, you see the big red emblazoned pentagram or inverted pentagram. Mm-hmm. That would put a target on your back. If you see the firebrand, it would look like just some nondescript band logo. So to that end, we thought about that before, but it kind of started serving that purpose as well, for being camouflage for the groups, the members of the group who want to show it without putting themselves in danger. But no, it hasn't really impacted our ritual because we only do it once a year. And the rituals that we primarily do, like I said, are the unbaptism. So it doesn't really impact that, but I could see how it would.
So I would assume then that when you, I know you've got something coming up later in the year, you won't have booked that under the name FSS.
Right.
Used.
Yeah, so we're doing, we have our meetup coming up in July, and we're going to have a couple of verbos, but we're just booking them under just regular names. People are asking, or like if the verbo owner said, well, what's going on? It's a business meeting. Really nothing more needs to be known than that. We were thinking about doing a camping trip, but I don't know if you've ever been in Georgia in July, but it is 350 degrees. So camping outside may not be the best. We're getting a couple of verbos, Airbnbs close by and doing it that way, but we're just booking them under just names.
I think in the UK, that's what you're describing, and other people have said that. We had, I think, the second episode we did was about satanic safety, and we had Cora from Satanic in Nature podcast as one of our guests, and she described the situation very similar to what you're talking about, in that it can be kind of like actively dangerous to identify as a Satanist.
And really, it goes depending on the region of America that you are. Like I said, we're in the Bible Belt. We're also in the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. I fucking hate saying that sentence, but unfortunately, it is what the world is. So you have like those groups who are really actively out to hurt anything that they deem to be a threat. I can imagine it would probably be a little bit less dangerous if you're like in California, like around Los Angeles, or if you're in a more forward-thinking part of the world. But in the South and in certain regions of America, it is very dangerous to come right out and say that I'm a Satanist, because they don't want to really learn what it is. They are going based on what Hollywood and movies and the Satanic Panic told them it was.
I believe Cora is in Arizona.
Very Republican. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were the first state to come up with constitutional carry when it comes to guns, meaning you don't have to have a license. You living in Arizona is the license you need to own a gun. So you can just have just right on your hip, no license, no nothing. If you're from Arizona, you can walk down the street with it. So yeah, like very Republican, that part of the world. Sure.
Yeah, it's you have apologized twice or three times now for, what's coming over from America, but you needn't apologize. You've got nothing to do with that. And believe me, we've got our own bullshit merchants over here as well. They're just not quite as powerful.
Well, Spain likes to export good wine and beautiful food, and England likes to export rain and cloudy weather. We like to export hard times. We like to export sugar-laden drinks and idiots who run off at the mouth without really knowing what the fuck they're talking about. And once again, I apologize if I'm swearing too much, but this stuff makes me unnervingly angry. So we were talking before the show about Boris, and like I feel like America is kind of quasi-responsible for that. We somehow cosmically sent you the English version of Donald Trump, and it turns out to be, kind of true, really, if you think about it. But yeah, we like to export hard times.
I'd love to lay the blame at the feet of America for Boris Johnson, but he's very much a creature of our own making. We have a bad habit over here in the United Kingdom of finding just a weirdo who's got like a little bit of like not responsibility of power. Like when Boris Johnson first came to the scene, I believe he was a councillor, and then was just like, oh, he's a bit weird, a bit wacky, and a bit strange, and his dad's a bit of a posh guy, so we're going to put him on the telly for a bit and laugh at him and keep giving him airtime. And eventually they're like, oh, that's the funny one from the telly. I'm sure that can't be too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you get yourself into a situation like you described earlier where people don't care about politics anymore because the consensus is very much like, this is all we do now, there's no change, and there's varying degrees of like hostility towards one or two different people, and then you kind of end up big parties and kind of fighting over like semantics of what definitions things are as opposed to any sort of meaningful change. And so you get freaks and weirdos who go like, oh, and my responsibility is I'm going to do something completely batshit in one of the two directions. And then people go like, if they're saying something about, doing something meaningful, as it were.
Right.
And so people go like, that's, you flock to it. You same thing in the States with Trump, like same sort of phenomenon there. Like he's like, all the parties are very much like, this is how it is now, nothing needs to change. And then you get one guy go like, actually, I think we should do just completely insane shit, like way off the far end of the right end of the scale. And people go like, that's someone who's saying we should do something a bit differently. Let's go that way. Because I think this is, if you look at the recent elections in Germany, with the spike in people voting for AfD, you've got a party there who are like objectively really far right, and so a lot of people are deciding to no longer vote for the light option and go straight for the far right option because it's something that's distilled that. And then in the same country, same phenomenon with I think it's Die Linke, the left wing party. Got a group of people going like, we want to do left-wing politics in a meaningful way that actually demands change. And their vote share sprung up at the same time. Because when you get given people who are doing the actual thing, instead of going for like, we want to go for like the middle road option, people are not going to do that because the middle road option is for stagnation, for the status quo, and for the majority of people in various places, the status quo is shit. It sucks. And so, as much as I would love to blame Boris Johnson on the United States of America, he's very much a creature of our own making by giving airtime to someone who has these sort of like opinions. We did the same thing with Farage. We'll do the same thing with like everyone else going forward, and we find the next sort of freaking weirdo to kind of give airtime to.
And then, when the unwashed masses, and I say that through an American lens, listen to these people talk, they're like, I like him. He's a straight shooter. He's not beholden by the Washington elite. He tells it like it is. So when you hear these like unnerving things that they're saying, and you hear them maybe like, talk about what was the thing during the campaign trail, the people from some Hispanic nation who were eating the geese in the town of some town in Ohio. And people would go, Yeah, I think they were like the Venezuelans or something. I can't remember what exactly nation they were blaming that on. Turned out not to even be true. But when you hear that and you think, I like this guy, he tells it like it is. He's not beholden to the government machine. What that's given is it's giving a green light to listen to the most unhinged and the biggest lies you can come up with. Now, a lot of the older guard in America would say that the young people in America think that everybody older than them is a Nazi. And here's why I say that. Trump uses a play out of the German playbook to unite the people, give them a common enemy. He has done this over and over again, be it the Mexicans with the wall, be it, we're going to like the tariff situation is the newest one. Wherever it's coming from, they're paying for it. And the younger people are starting to see this. They're like, hey, he's just trying to rile up his unwashed masses by going after a group that he knows he can get away with. And if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it goose steps like a duck, it's probably a fucking duck. So to call Trump and his people Nazis, and of course, Elon with my thoughts are with everybody, like that bullshit he was doing. And now he's in the fucking White House.
The one, the gesture that Steve Bannon copied shortly after, deliberately, he knew what he was doing.
Right. And he knew what he was doing. And it's that. So, but they also get incredulous when we say, punch Nazis, this guy's a fucking Nazi, this, and this. They don't want to see the signs. And this is the same group of people that fought in the war against the Nazis. The older guard in America fought in that war. And now they are cowtailing and licking the boot of the people who are doing this bullshit. It makes no sense to me. And it's infuriating. That's why I put 10 toes in the sand and I say that Satanism is important and it's something that we really should take more seriously, because I feel like we're one of the only people out here who are really seeing it for what it is. But yeah, no, I've been a Satanist for 3 years, but the past year, seeing it impact so many people who I love and I call friends, it has really solidified the thoughts and what we stand for and what we espouse. It really has solidified that in my heart, and it's made it a cause that I would die on a hill for, most certainly. Theoretically, of course. Nobody here is going to war. I used very insightful language. We're not going to war, but it's metaphoric. I would die on the metaphorical hill of Satanism any day.
I can't go to war. I've got bone spurs.
But no,
oh, Jesus.
No.
It's funny what you say about the American public. Yeah. They like a candidate who they think tells it like it is. And
it couldn't be further wrong. He's not telling it like it is. He's telling it the way he wants it to be. Yeah.
Over here, we're not telling it like it is one thing, but what people really like is someone who's a bit upper class, and we can all kind of like think, oh, he's probably better than us. And he probably deserves to be in charge because he went to fucking Eton, or he lives in Cambridge or Oxford or wherever, and that's our leaders, and therefore he knows better than us, and we should just let him get on with it.
Right.
Yes, and it is especially noticeable, and there is still a massive class thing here in this country. I would argue that it's still noticeable that people who proclaim they're men of the people, I'm a man of the people, like Nigel Farage, went to quite an exclusive private school. Nigel Farage has a plummy accent. He doesn't sound common. He doesn't sound regional. He's had plenty of money. He is exactly from the same kind of background as Boris Johnson. It's just that he was unlucky that his dad wasn't quite as famous as Boris Johnson's.
Whereas the language he uses is more important, because instead of using the language of like the established politicians over here, which is prevaricating and being quite loud, being quite academic and being never fooling anything, he's quite straight. He says things in a way that isn't overly complex and overly doesn't put people off. I'm aware of the RDI. I'm currently using words. the way he speaks doesn't put people off, not because of the content it was saying, but because the way he says it is not deliberately trying to, make journalists have to dance around the meaning of the words. He's very much, I'm saying this. This is what I think it is. Full stop. Next question. And the way he acts is not subservient to the media and the media sphere. He's very much like, I'm going to say this. I'm going to keep going for it. And you're going to keep coming to me to ask questions because you need access to me to sell your papers or get clicks on your website and get your news out there. Because I'm going to give you the headlines that people respond to, as opposed to someone like Keir Starmer, who is, a cabbage. It doesn't really stand for anything, and everything he says means like 3 or 4 different things if you want to look at it in one way. I'm going like, I'm definitely going to do this, and turn around and do something completely wrong, and it puts people off politics, and it puts people off the whole system, and it just makes the entire thing significantly more complicated to get anything out of.
It's certainly not difficult to see why people think that characters like Farage or Johnson or Trump or Vance even are kind of, have something that's important to say. It's not till you actually start analysing the things that they're actually saying that you think to yourself, hang on a minute, that's absolute bollocks. What are you talking about?
So I'm a firm believer in the pendulum theory. As one swings, will ultimately kind of go back to center and back to a more rational and even thought process. It's just going to take time. But since time eternal, America has not given the rest of the world much pause to give us a lot of respect. We have done goofy crap pretty much from time eternal. We don't need a politician to make us look like idiots. We can do a good enough job of that on our own. Just, like school shootings or the crap we put in our food or how we treat the homeless. Like, we don't need a politician to make us look unprepared. I think America has done that pretty well on its own. But to have a politician who's done that, and this is really the first time that I can remember that we've really had one that's just been a fucking thorn in our side, not doing us any favors. Trump. I think we all know who I'm talking about here. Adding all of that to him saying this incendiary crap, I really hope and pray that this pendulum swings back to the more side of logic and reason sooner rather than later, and we can get back to at least having a leader who at times may be inefficient, but sounds like a stately and measured person who speaks with a bit of thought. Yeah, and who speaks with a bit of like respect to who he's speaking to.
What's the general opinion on someone like Bernie Sanders? Because he's quite, again, he seems to fulfill that criteria of if an American were to listen to what he says, they would say there's someone who's a straight shooter. There's someone who tells it like it is, in the sense that he's very direct.
So the sense of Bernie you would be people of our ilk. If you're an American and you're a Satanist, a large part of the Bernie supporters would be very much in our camp. Other people would see him as the dangerous socialist, the dangerous communist socialist. They don't understand that word fully. And I really hate giving this guy credit. I fucking hate giving this guy credit. But I was listening to Bernie Sanders on the Joe Rogan podcast. I know, I get it. Here, I can hear the collective groans. But he explained how he would give us United Healthcare or universal healthcare and all of this. And he said, this makes a lot of sense, taxing Wall Street transactions 1 fraction of 1 cent for every time. And this was Bernie's idea for how he was going to do it. And when I heard that, it made a lot of sense. I was like, that's how he's going to do it. Why is this not implemented anyway? Why are we not already doing this? Which, by the way, that was also one of the last times I listened to Joe Rogan. But I knew he was going to be a guest on the show, so I wanted to hear him out. But yeah, no, the average American thinks about Bernie Sanders like he is the dangerous communist socialist. We can't have this, so unfortunately he never would have had traction here anyway.
That's a shame.
Yes.
Well, now that Elon Musk has dismantled the CIA, you're going to have China stepping in to fill the sort of like soft power role across the world. So I feel like fear of socialism will return. It's horrible Xi Jinping.
gutting us at every fucking turn. And it's only been, 3 weeks, a month? I mean, Elon Musk has had his grubby little paws in the White House for just under a month, and this shit's what he's doing. I'm worried. I really am.
Eddie, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie,
you might want to leave and rejoin.
We have lost Eddie for a second.
No, back.
Oh,
you're back.
They're back. They're back.
I started talking about Xi Jinping, and they're killing me. They're killing me. I know what's happening. I'm targeted.
They slowed down your bandwidth on purpose because they knew you were talking about them.
Yes, absolutely. It's the deep state. You know, the deep state as opposed to the shallow state, the lightweight state. I don't know. I don't understand these things. You know, they sound terribly woke to me.
We're not the shallow state. We're the shallow end of the gene pool over here on this side of the pond.
Well, you were talking there about hoping that the pendulum swings back in the opposite direction. But, of course, what you're relying on there is the laws of motion and gravity. And we know those things are woke as well. So we should not count on them.
Science, right? Oh, my God. Oh, no.
Yeah. Woke nonsense.
Your woke science. We all know the Earth's flat, really.
I like to think the Earth is a cube. It can be both flat and round at the same time. It's a dice, or it's a die, I guess, just spinning on. It's a flat circle. Yeah.
Interesting.
By the way, that was absolute bullshit. By the way,
it's a blob.
It's a what?
A blob. It's a gummy bear.
Yes.
Maybe the Earth is Pringle shaped, which would explain why we like potato-based snacks so much.
No one's ever explored that possibility. It could be a long cylindrical sphere. It could be rotating on a different axis. I mean, who's to say, man? Like, so the flat portion is just the very small portion of the bottom or top of the Pringles can. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something. Let's circle back. Yeah.
No, let's not. Let's not do that.
Just for our listeners, I'd like to say at this point that those of us with video could see that Eddie was sitting there with their face very much in their hands.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is going to be a very European-based joke, but it's not the ice giants we have to worry about. It's Mr. Tato, who guards the realm that we are not allowed to travel to.
Ah.
So Mr. Tato is really the ice giants that we have to be worried about.
That's the conspiracy theorist correspondent on the podcast. I hate you.
So what we're doing is we've made it now 55 minutes, an hour into the podcast. We've lulled the Satanist into a sleep. Now we're talking about the real shit, guys.
Yeah,
Mr. Tato is the ice giant that protects America. Okay. There's another one. Okay. I promise I'll probably end with this one here. So I'm a Satanist. I've made no bones about it. The guy that I work with, we're sitting in a work truck for 5 hours a day. And we were traveling to a job site, 45 minutes of silence. He turns to me and he knows I'm a Satanist. He goes, "Hey man, did you know Oreos are satanic?" My mind was blown. I was like, "Please elaborate." And he goes, "Well, if you look at an Oreo, there's a bunch of satanic imagery on an Oreo." And without thinking and without pausing, I go, "Did you know milk is also satanic because they're in bed with Oreos? Oreos are milk's favorite cookie. Big Milk is satanic."
Big Milk.
And I told him that Big Milk is satanic because Oreos are milk's favorite cookie. And he looked at me wide-eyed, thinking that I had inside track knowledge on this. And I'm just fucking with the guy. So yeah, he came at me with Oreos are satanic, and I really made him think. So yeah, that's another lie you can spread to the unwashed masses, that Big Milk is in league with the devil because Oreos are satanic.
I would just like to say to Jack's co-worker at this point, if you're listening,
he's
not
okay. Guarantee you he's not.
Not after the Earth theory. I think we are alone here, guys.
I had come across that Oreos and mystical symbols thing before now. It's like What? Really? You think so? Oh, do you know how many biscuits we've got over here? Sorry, biscuits.
Cookies. Yeah.
US listeners, cookies. We've got over here with weird, that date back nearly a century with weird embossed patterns on them. Mm-hmm. They put them on to make them look different and special. If they wanted to fucking raise Satan, they wouldn't do it through the medium of a handy sugary snack.
They would do it through the digestive biscuits. Those things are horrible anyway. Those are the works of the devil.
Whoa.
Easy
love them.
I cannot believe this is called a digestive disgusting in the same conversation as an Oreo. Two,
exactly.
People don't actually believe this. This is one of the conspiracy theories that exists as a joke. It's a joke.
Uh-huh.
Some people do believe it because some people are crazy, but most of it is a joke because a lot of conspiracy theorists are anti-Semitic. But that's not relevant to this point. This point is that people look at that and go like, how can I make a conspiracy theory out of something that's, innocuous and benign and exists everywhere? And they look at it and go like, I bet I can make a conspiracy theory out of this by looking at these things and connecting to two other things. It's not actually a real thing. It's just a thing people have looked at and gone like, that'd be really funny to try and perpetuate. And some people do fight because these communities are intrinsically looking for things to explain their worldview in a way that is, not the most obvious thing in the world, which is an Oreo would look boring if it was blank.
Right. So over here in Texas, Oklahoma, in the Midwest, chili is a big thing. They have chili cook-offs. I don't know if you've even do you guys have chili over there? Meat, beans, spices. This guy on Reddit told his friend, who's this big Second Amendment supporter, it was just a Republican. He was like, beans are woke. You should make your chili without beans because beans are woke. And his friend was like, what do you mean, buddy? He was like, yeah, well, chili made in New Mexico and Texas in the 1800s really only had meat. The lefties from San Diego put beans in it as filler so they could feed the homeless. And the next day he changed his recipe because he was like, I don't subscribe to that woke shit. And he made him change the recipe for his chili that has won awards and has been, and the friend found out about it like a couple of months later. And he was like, why did you do that to me, man? He was like, I just said it to see if you'd believe it. You didn't do any sort of fact checking. You just ran with what I said as truth and you changed the shit on your own. Fuck off.
You're a fucking idiot.
Well deserved.
So if there is a thing over there that the more right-wing thinkers would eat, if it's like a food that is associated with like a group, like if you guys have like, I don't know, like a certain type of shepherd's pie that like fucking Republicans like, once again, I'm an American. They don't teach us this shit. Start a woke campaign saying that one ingredient in it is woke and see how long it takes them to change it.
Typically, like obsession with not eating specific brands of food is more like a left-wing position. It's very much like the way you eat food and what you eat food as like a person is less like concerned with what side of the political divide you fall under. It's very like specifically American valence that I quite enjoy watching, but we don't really have that over here. Like the obsession over there with like eating a Chick-fil-A because their owners are right wing is a thing that I find fascinating. But over here we wouldn't have that sort of thing. With people who don't care and people who wouldn't actively go towards it because they don't agree with it. You won't have people actively going to support that as a brand. It's not really that sort of thing over here. You got one or two weirdos, but it's not really that sort of thing.
Is Chick-fil-A even over there?
No. We have Taco Bell now, we discovered, which is, it looks gross, I'll be honest. I'm sorry.
So what I like doing is, once again, I'm from Georgia. Chick-fil-A is from 7 miles away from my house. Like the headquarters where they began is literally in my backyard. So this is what I do. So they have to say my pleasure when they take your order, and they have to call you by your name when you pick up your food. So what I do is, and this is my silent protest, I will go in there and I will give them a goetic demon name. They're like, can I get a name for your order? Belial. And they have to actually say, Belial number 62, your order's ready. And I'll just walk. So I make them say goetic demon names on the off chance that I do go there. But yeah, you're right. The food sucks, but I'll give them like Leviathan, Belial, Asmodeus. Like I'll just give them whatever. Yeah, I'll give them Asmodeus, and they'll be like, how do you spell that? And then I'll spell it out for them. And on the ticket, on the little thing, it will say Asmodeus. Another way that I like trolling them, in the morning, if you get a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit and a sweet tea, it comes up to be $6.66. They will ask you, would you like to round up to change your order number? And I'm like, no, why would I give you extra money? Charge me that. And they'll always ask again, are you sure? Can I charge 5 cents for something else? No, sir. I would like to pay what I'm owed. So they have to say your total is $6.66. So yeah, I troll them a bit with that. Yeah. But I digress, man.
Because the work is going to really
That's genuinely mind-boggling that they would see that as an issue.
Right.
It's interesting.
And it's always they want to charge you more. I'm like, you don't want to take a penny away from me and charge me $6.65? You want me to pay $6.67 so you cannot say that number? Like, no, this is what I'm owed. I need to pay this. And it's always like, well, we're going to take a penny away. We're going to be the good guys. No, give us an extra penny is what they're doing.
Wow.
It's a little bit superstitious or something, like the satanic panic is still alive.
Well, Chick-fil-A.
Some like what
Chick-fil-A's
is wrong with that number? Like it's a number. Come on.
They've got quite a fundamentalist Christian background.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A. Don't they still close on Sundays or weekends? They kind of like go, yes, because on Sunday thou shalt not work, except for their accountants, probably.
Right. Yeah. The lawyers and accountants still have to show up for work. Yeah. Chick-fil-A has a very hard line. Like, to interview with and to work for Chick-fil-A, one of the questions, is they'll ask what church you go to. And that's not a question that will bar you from employment, but they want to know. And also, too, they do close every Sunday, which is weird in the fact that that's the only day Southerners want Chick-fil-A is on Sundays. I never think to myself, on like Monday, man, really, I want some Chick-fil-A. It's always like on Sunday, damn it, I kind of wish they were open. But yeah, no, they will never work on Sunday.
When they ask you what church you go to,
exactly, that was my question.
Are they asking, are you religious, or are they genuinely interested in what church you go to?
So during the application process, so in America, they cannot bar you from employment if you're not religious, but they just kind of want to know. So it's a way to test you to see if they want you to work there.
Right.
So one of the questions is, well, what church do you go to? And you could riff one out and make one up, but most Southern cities are small enough to know where they can kind of figure out if you were lying to them or not. Had I were to apply to Chick-fil-A, and I would say, well, I'm a member of the Free Society. What church is that? It's an online church. And I just leave out the last word. I'm a member of the Free Society. They would probably Google it and see what that search comes up with.
And you wouldn't get invited back for a second, did you?
Yeah, doubt I would be working there next week. Nope.
I will say in their defense that being closed on Sunday is a good thing. Hospitality workers tend to be paid fuck all, and having a guaranteed day on the weekend is good. It's
right.
hard for
I agree.
people. We are going back on that.
I fully agree.
Very much that we are currently recording on May Day, and therefore we should be, defending, the fundamental right to weekend to people on the left wing of the spectrum, and shouldn't be forcing people on minimum wages to cook chicken for us. But I understand why you may want that at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it shouldn't be because of the Christian beliefs.
Yeah, no, because you have to go to work. It's very
like the reasoning behind it is weird to me, but I agree that you should have, or like people should have a day off. Like you can manage your shopping or whatever without Sundays being like the day of your shopping, groceries, whatever.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I can.
But the reasoning is sick.
I'm kind of like old enough to remember a time where I worked for a company that gave me double overtime for working on a Sunday, and it's, that's what used to happen. And now it's like you work on a Sunday, you get paid the same as any other fucking day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Fully agree with that one, Eddie. But having said that, doing it because your fucking boss is a Christian fundy nut, that's a different fucking reason.
Once again, my American mind was just blown. The way that we like to protect our workers is making them work fucking more. There's never been a time in my life where you would get double overtime for working on the weekend. They would just tell you to get wrecked and see you on Monday. So that's amazing, man. I'm happy for you that at least somebody in the world got that.
We used to have strong unions. We don't anymore, but we used to.
Yeah.
Some sectors still have that as a thing, but it's very much not a common practice over here anymore.
We used to have that. They're definitely used to, thanks to those pesky woke things called workers' unions.
Right. Yeah. Those fucking liberal shit.
Yeah, because why would any working person want a union? Because they're woke. They'll just get in the way of giving you a decent life.
Why are they worried about their interest being served? No, these get back. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Get back to work. Yeah. Well, man, we have strayed kind of far away from the initial topic, man. We're just now just a bunch of old people bitching about the world. I love it. There we go.
It always ends up like this.
Exactly, sure. And
I love it.
Has
a
there
lot of
ever
our
been,
episodes end up like this.
has there ever been a time more perfect for bitching about the way the world is? Like now more than ever. Like absolutely. Like this is the time that we should be bitching and we should be trying to figure out a way, if not to correct it, then to upset it. Protest can come in many different ways and many different factions. And I think today or yesterday was like our buying or economic protest. We weren't supposed to buy anything yesterday. And a guy on Blue Sky was like, instead of not buying anything, why don't you just open all the containers? Like you want to protest Coke, just open all the 2 liters on the shelf, put them back. Like shit'll go bad pretty quick. You're not spending money, but you're also you're disrupting them from the inside. And I was like, man, that dude fucking gets it. Because really, if you're in a grocery store and you just open up a couple of 2 liters or you open up food and just close it back up, what have you done other than broke the seal and made the expiration date start right then? You're not really damaging it, but you're also affecting it from the outside. So now's the time we need to start thinking about more creative and more dumb ways of disrupting the apple cart, because we need to let the world know that this shit isn't going to stand. And I'm not saying go out there and just put a bomb on like a gas pipeline or nothing. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to hurt anybody. We're not trying to do anything like that, but find creative ways to disrupt the system. And that guy had the best way, as far as I'm concerned. Just go into a grocery store, start opening food and closing it.
You know what? Maybe start with a bookshop, and I don't know. I did that. I'm not saying we. Just move all the Bibles into fiction section, because it's not damaging anything.
Right.
And it belongs there.
And you're helping them, really. Matter of fact, what I like doing is, I have about 1,000 of these that I will just put into like every religious text. Like go into Barnes and Noble, go in a bookstore, and just like in the Bible, there you go, put that in there, put it back on the shelf. Counterbalance. Yes.
I love that. Again, you're not damaging anything. I love that.
Just adding a different point of view and just adding a little different. Yeah. And that's what the world needs more, counterbalance. Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, the one of the very few powers you hold as an individual in an arch-capitalist society like ours is your custom, your consumership.
Yeah.
And one easy way by starting is look at those fuckers who run companies who were there at the inauguration and went right behind them and said, we are cutting all the DEI initiatives. And you go, right, okay, Bezos, not buying any fucking thing from Amazon, and tell all the people you know, don't cancel your Prime membership, just fuck them off. You can find that shit elsewhere, and you're probably less likely to get some cheap illegal charger that was made in China in the sweatshop. You kind of you start with that, you go, fuck Facebook off. You can find other ways of keeping in touch with people. Fuck the meta platforms off. exert your right as a consumer to withhold your custom. It might not look like a big thing, but the more people do it, the more they will see it reflected in their business figures, and that is all they fucking care about. Literally all they care about. They'll wave the red flag and Mao's little book one day, and they'll fucking do a Nazi salute the next if it means they can keep making more and more money. That's all they fucking care about. Sorry, rant over.
No. And to kind of tie it back into the original part of like the topic of what we're talking about here is, so we do, not only are we under the banner of Global Order of Satan, but we're also under the banner of anarcho-Satanist, anarchistic Satanism. So we put the onus of big corporations, ExxonMobil, Amazon, Walmart, you pick it. They have done the same amount of harm, if not more, than organized religion. Amazon for the longest has made this thing. It's a very well-known secret that they time you when you go to the bathroom. Your productivity is tracked by this gun that you have to use to scan packages. If that gun is set down for more than 7 minutes, it starts docking you in productivity, meaning you have to run across a football field-sized warehouse, use the bathroom, and get back to your station within 7 minutes. So yeah, we tend to, treat big corporations as the same evil as organized religion. Now, I understand that people can't always get away from Amazon. Sometimes you have to use them, but use them sparingly. As I like to say, shop local, still corporate.
Yeah, I do think people forget that, people were able to shop and buy things before Amazon was invented.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and it might be a bit more tricky these days, but it's not impossible.
No, it's not. And I haven't used them for years. It didn't take this to stop me using them. It was their well-known practices towards their workforce.
Yeah.
And, and the profits of which go to Jeff Bezos building a blue rocket that looks like a fucking dick.
Yeah.
What? Fuck off. And I have managed, and it's more awkward when you've got to search for stuff and you need to buy it online because there's nowhere local that has it. It is more awkward, and sometimes you can find it locally. You might have to get out of the house and get your ass there yourself, but you are not contributing towards the empire of a dickhead who is now also siding with a fash.
Right. To live on your laurels, it does take, it takes away a certain level of comfort. So we like to walk it like we talk it. I will only use Amazon as a last resort. If I cannot go into town and I can't find a local mom and pop shop that sells it, I will then at least backtrack a little bit to like Target, and then I will backtrack more but I always try to find it local first. Local, Target. If you dig deep enough, any corporation's going to have skeletons in the closet, but it's which skeletons are you good with dancing with? Amazon is always the last resort. So yeah, it's the convenience of having it the next day. You don't have to leave your house. You can order it in your underwear, whatever. But yeah, get out in traffic, man. Like, this shit's worth it. Vote with your dollars, because it's not really going to do too much to their bottom line, really, but it'll let them know that like a certain faction of people do not want this shit.
I mean, like, Amazon as an entity isn't just like the storefront or the Prime Video. It exists as like maybe, I think, the predominant web service. Like, everyone's hosting, or their domains are mostly run through Amazon Web Services. Like, as a monopoly, as an institution, Amazon is massive and has its fingers in everything. And trying to excise yourself from it is almost impossible without like removing yourself to a cabin in the woods.
Right.
It's the sort of thing like when the people talk about boycotts, which you mentioned a minute ago about yesterday being like a go back at, boycotts work best when they're targeted specifically at things. Like McDonald's, not so long ago, reported that they did suffer like a quite significant financial impact from people boycotting them over their continued like business with Israel during the current genocide. So, so like having it targeted at things where the pressure can be felt most is the best way to do it. I think like a general sort of thing doesn't always work out best. And it has to be like done on something that's feasible and trying like to, yes, I would say yes, stop using Amazon where you can. Like same day delivery, next day delivery does not exist in a sustainable world. And if you want to fight for something that is sustainable, you have to acknowledge these things that's being there. But the concept like, or we can have cold fusion sort of stuff to like save the energy processes so we can have our nice treats. It does not exist. It's not feasible. It's not something that we have to aspire to. We have to be realistic where we are now and try and build a sustainable world where we can.
Mm.
It may mean like giving up, like, being able to order something and getting it the next day. It may mean, not being able to like get your phone out and then have a takeaway delivered to you within 20 minutes or within an hour of the shops, going through Amazon, going through delivery, going through Uber Eats, whatever the fuck it is. You have to be realistic with that. And Amazon being what it is and being like a huge conglomerate that has, covers every single field of modern human life. It's the sort of thing like restrict your usage of it where you can, but understandably, like there are practical elements to it that are very difficult to get away from. And stop winning the Wall Street Journal. That sucks as well.
Yes, I mean, it is a good point. AWS is fucking huge and used by so many companies to run their servers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, the episode we did on privacy recently, that involved, a large part of that involves avoiding Meta, avoiding Amazon, avoiding Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. It's fucking Twitter.
It's fucking Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Avoiding Google. You end up, like Eddie has said, there is a payoff, a balance between you lose a bit of convenience, but at the end of the day, you are doing your small bit to a better world, and you end up a bit more private as well.
But no, guys, I've really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate you guys for having me on. And if I could really give a message to the people out there in the European Union and beyond who are looking at America and thinking that everybody who lives in America must be co-signing with this shit right now, just know that that is a very select few people out there who really think that America is doing good. A lot of Americans are pissed off. We're annoyed. We're not being represented. We were sold a false bill of goods, and we are trying to come up with every way we can to fight this. So just know that, give us a bit of grace. The unwashed, the flyover states, as we call them, are really responsible for this. The smart, well-intentioned American, which they are just as mad as you guys. And we are just as in disbelief as you guys when y'all see the idiotic news articles that are coming from our borders daily. So just know we're trying over here. It may take a little bit, but we're trying.
Oh man, we're working on it here. We're working to catch up with you at the moment. It really looks like we're working to catch up with you.
I was going to say, give it another 3 or 4 years and we'll be exactly where you are now, I think.
Oh no.
Fucking hell. But no, guys, I've had a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys for not only taking in a ragtag group of anarchists like the Free Society, but also for what you guys do, giving an alternative to people in the satanic space who have left other places and found disrepair there and have found refuge in the global order. I think you guys are doing an important mission, and kudos to you guys for what you're doing. So appreciate that from the southeastern corner of America. We appreciate you guys.
Hail to that, and hail to everything you do.
Yes,
it's awesome.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Hail
awesome
FSS, hail Jack, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
And we will be back soon. Thank you again for listening. Our usual thanks to friends of the podcast, Matt and the guys from Hearst Pileup, for letting us use their music as our theme tune. Why not check them out on Bandcamp? And while you're at it, why not check out our compilation? proceeds of which go to charity, and it's called Contra Odium, from the Satan Not Haten campaign. And thank you to the Retro Warriors podcast for our first Ko-fi donation. So if you're into retro gaming, why not go and check out their podcast? Thank you again from all of us. As usual, if you have any comments or you'd like to suggest topics for future episodes, please email us at gospod@ghostsatan.com. That's GOSPOD at GOSATAN.com. And in the meantime, be well, hail Satan, and thank you for listening.